Alright. Gruff, how was your injury list?
Yeah, so okay, to be fair. I think we're still running the rule over, Lids, Dimitri, and Jeff to a certain degree as well. But the boys are on the field taking some part of units or training. So we've just swapped reps on a lot of players today and getting everyone really up to speed with where we want to approach the weekend. Obviously reviewed last weekend and things from that game. So everyone's on page regardless of selection.
With Dan, what are his chances, Dan Lydiard?
Touch and go, and to be fair, I think if it is the case that the nerves aren't responding, well, we've got able deputies there, and there's enough competition on the squad anyway. So we've got to do what's right, even though the magnitude of the game is huge upon us. We've got trust in what we do and the squad that can fill in if needs be.
Dan Bigger, he went off last weekend. Was that just? Is he okay?
Yeah, no, Dan Bigger and Scott Baldwin, the dead legs have pulled through pretty healthily. Dan has done a full part of training today, and as you'd expect, he's all over everything.
Griff, they've got an excellent, Exeter done excellent sort of ground record unbeaten this season. How do you set about breaking that sequence?
Yeah, and to be fair, I've watched nigh on all their games, and I've been impressed with them from early in the season, beating a side like Leicester comfortably at home. Harlequins, they rolled over. The Clermont game was impressive in itself. And you've got to do the fundamentals of the game brilliantly well. And to be fair, we did that in the home game against Exeter and the Liberty. There's only a 14% turnover ratio in the home game. And you've got to take the same mindset to go down to Exeter, but also have, I think, a degree of boldness about taking chances. We created half opportunities against Clermont, we didn't take them. And I think the magnitude of the occasion again, that we've got to be cool, calm and clinical under pressure.
Were you surprised by Exeter's selection last weekend, given that you blew the pool wide open with your win on Friday night, and then they went pretty much a second team out to Porto and lost? Had they won this weekend's game, could be win takes all. Were you surprised at that approach, or do you understand perhaps where Rob Dax is coming from?
No, you can certainly understand it around managing the season, and I think a lot of us can observe different environments and perhaps make some sort of assumptions, but Rob will know the squad better than anyone, where they were physically after their previous week's exertions, the sort of accumulation effect around the number of games and how again you manage the season. And I think it's also trust and belief in the quality of players they've got down there. I don't think the back row missed a beat with people like Tom Johnson, Kai Horseman coming in. They fit the sort of physical specimen they crave down there. And they're churning out quality backs at the moment. To be fair to them, there's a young element to it, but then you've got people like Campanaro coming in this year. I think adds again a bit of dynamism to the 13 channel. And people like Byron McGuigan's been around with Glasgow and so forth. There's some quality players coming in and supplementing what they've already got around what you could say their main team, but I think there's enough healthy competition that they want to drive that for the rest of the season.
How big is this game? Where do you rate it within past matches in Europe?
Obviously for us it's just a great opportunity for us going into the last round of matches to be in the position. Obviously something I think we'd have gladly taken going into the competition. It's as usual written off, but you can certainly appreciate that sort of mindset because of the different resources around this pool and elsewhere. But so having got to this point, it's a huge one for us. Obviously, back to sort of the days previously when I had different capacity in the Ospreys, it was great to be involved around these sort of crunch games and having the sort of carrot of knockout rugby. We've seen it around the league campaign last year, having the carrot of going for a semi-final, final was something this young group really gripped hold of, and you could see it in the last 2-3 weeks of preparation. Obviously we had the Leinster game, but it was moving towards the Clermont game being a real massive one for us at home, setting us up for this opportunity and this one. I think players like Alan Wynne, Bigger, Tiprick, they deserve because of what they just put into the shirt, and hopefully the players around them can seize the opportunity because they don't come around very often, and you've got to try and take that moment.
In the back of your mind, are you thinking about maybe that home draw in the next stage?
No, I think our mindset hasn't changed since prior to Clermont. You know, the feeling that if we could win 2 games, you know, we'd qualify for the last 8 and take it from there. And again, thinking about, you know, where we've come from really around this group and just to be in contention, I think we've got to go there and try and win a game. But as we've said, we respect a home record that's second to none around the game in Europe and the strength of the Aviva, you know, and it's going to be a massive achievement to do so and get the 4 points.
Gruff, how big an achievement would this be to get to the quarters when you look at this pool? And as you kind of touched upon there, the differences in resources, Clermont, Bordeaux, Exeter, second in the English League. You're right, probably very few people gave you a chance. You could top the pool. How big an achievement would it be for everyone here involved?
I guess it'd be pretty big. We don't dwell on stuff like that. I think we just, you know, we know that like last year's league campaign, you tend to get written off, and if your back's against the wall, you just come out fighting, and these players do so. They're, you know, well led in terms of the playing group itself, but we just continue trying to drive standards, you know, pursue excellence, and you don't always get that in terms of the rugby, but I think what you get then is just the character of the group coming out to just try and seize every moment and opportunity. And it's not just around 3 good home wins in Europe, but also the away performances. We've actually, you know, churned something out that's a little bit different, and you know, those 4 points away have put us in contention to do so. But also testimony perhaps to, again, not just the rugby itself, but the whole culture of the Ospreys and what it means. I think young players coming into the group, you know, people like your Sam Underhills, the Rory Thorntons, the Owen Watkins, and even people like Brendan Leonard coming in and actually, you know, seeing a point of difference around the Ospreys and starting to thrive in that as well.
Are you expecting your toughest game of the pool down there?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just the next one, it's the last one. I think you know, they'll still see it as an opportunity for them to potentially progress, but they've played some real good open rugby in their home environment, but also they've been excellent at seizing opportunities, a massive set piece challenge, and again we've got to improve from where we were last week, you know, because they could really strangle us there if we give them the ins in the game to do so, but also knowing how, you know, I think they're a well-rounded team with threats. You know, Chudley at 9, Jack Nowell is a point of difference around them, and then the balance of the back line, people like Witten, Sam Hill, you know, Steenson tactically knows the game inside out. So for many different reasons, it is probably the biggest challenge.
If Dan Lydiate is ruled out, I guess you won't have any qualms about throwing in one of your youngsters, Sam Underhill, having done really well last week. Yeah,
definitely not. You know, and there's a few of them bubbling underneath, to be fair, but you know, Sam is the obvious one that's you know, he's obviously, you know, getting attention, but we've seen it from day one when he came in the summer, just come in with a pretty mature outlook and how he wants to develop his game around quality people around him, and you know, driving himself on to be, you know, bigger and better. And I know there's obviously short term people see these type of fixtures, but you know, I think we see it long term as well with Sam getting this exposure.
You working on him, trying to get him to commit to Wales rather than England?
Not overly. We're not going to, you know, force his hand either way. You know, he's committed within the region for the foreseeable future. You know, I think again he's well-rounded and perhaps slightly different. You know, pursuing some educational routes, which I think sometimes can help your focus being a young man rather than being a rugby vegetable. As some of the guys coming through the system can be just, you know, trying to just be one thing. He's a bit different, and I think with the people we've got here and the guidance he gets here, you know, and he's in a good environment to learn his rugby but develop as a person as well.
Talk about committed future. Sally Wynne started the week yesterday. A good sort of, you glad he's staying, obviously?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's, you know, he's a huge talisman for the region, and you know, I think, you know, the playing group respond to him continuously. You know, see that in a league campaign last year where we were written off, but he saw the likes of Smith, Baker and those around him, you know, young players, and I know he feels like an old man around this group, but it's almost, you know, gives him the energy and the drive to be better himself, but the people around him get better too, and you know, I think there's no greater credit to the man.
Ospreys have been linked with Roger Jones as well, some talk that he might be on his way. Will you be interested in?
Potentially, but you know, we won't sort of comment on any speculation, and we'll just, for us, the focus is on a pretty big game now this weekend.
Gruff, what is the message to the likes of Lloyd Ashley, Sam Davis, Nicky Smith, people like that, passed over by Wales and perhaps Hannah as well?
I think it's for us, you know, I'm brutally honest, it's an irrelevance in terms of our prep for this weekend. Their messages around being the best they can be to play Exeter and win a game away from home. Obviously within that, in terms of the coaching itself, we will continuously challenge the players to get better and keep performing consistently over a period of time. You know, in terms of the league campaign we go into, and you know, potentially further things down the line. You know, if they can keep consistent in what they do as Ospreys, I'm sure their time will come. But for us, the time is this week.
Do you see any of those lads as being a bit unlucky?
Potentially, yeah. But I think there's a little bit of loyalty around players who've been there and done it before for Wales, which these players haven't. They've just got to continue to shine, as I said, be the best they can be, and you know, when they keep getting opportunities with us, and we'll have our own internal competition for those players as well. You know, they've got to do their stuff for the Ospreys to keep us bubbling over as well.
How's Rees looking, Robert?
Oh, he always looks $1 million, but in terms of the rugby, he has cranked up a notch this week. He's around some of the units, but also just been taken in for some extra skill-based work, not so much about the pass and kicking routines, because he's done that for a couple of weeks, but around our language and some of our patterns of play, just getting used to the movement patterns and where he's going to fit those patterns when he comes back, again for his own game to develop and understand as well where our game is at the moment, and you know what he can add to our game as well. So no, within if not next week, certainly early February, we'll hopefully get him on the park.
And hopefully you'll get some time for you before Wales?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, Wales have made a statement. They've obviously brought a couple of other boys to have a look at, and again, there's some consistency around the nines there anyway. So similar sort of message. I think Rees, you know, will thrive on putting the Osprey shirt on, show his qualities, and again, like the others, once you show that quality over a period of time, I think the New Zealand tour will just come quickly on the horizon.
What did you make of Brendan's effort last week?
Yeah, the best yet, to be fair. I think the early season we saw glimpses of that quality there, with a few little moments, line breaks from some of our line-out attack, but he was in amongst a period of play and players who weren't quite sure where we were in terms of the dynamism of the game and sort of managing sort of the structural parts of the game with his 10. But you know, I think since obviously post-World Cup period, we've had pretty consistent messages going through to the group. We've evolved those over the Christmas periods, and he's been part of those evolution of messages, and it has included him doing a little bit more on the ball, and I thought he was really lively, challenging defenders in phase play as well. You know, and I think he's got the pace to still be able to do that around the fringes, drag defenders down certain corridors as well, and open up some space elsewhere. And when we hopefully add to that in some of our backline play, and that'll link into some of our other work, I think it's given us a few more options where we need to perhaps take more points.
JJ Engelbrecht, when are you expecting him to arrive and his debut thereafter?
He'll travel the 25th, so that's, when's that, next Monday, is it? Monday, so I think you're working around middle of the Glasgow week, and obviously we're talking to him now about some of the things we do behind the scenes, some of our calls and language again, just to try and upskill him quickly around the game. But again, I think it'll be working our way through that week. You're obviously very unlikely to figure that week, and perhaps the Munster game, because it's a 2-week lead-in, will be something we'll try and work towards, because obviously we've craved that type of player, and I can't wait to get him in.